This video contains strong language and sensitive topics related to one of the recent events. This video is not suitable for children under 13. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hey yo, what's up guys? This is your boy Byron once again, and I don't know why I'm making this video, but I am about to anyway. I'll explain everything, so you may be wondering why I'm making this video. Well, this is gonna be a story time vid. You've seen me telling you real life stories about myself, but this one is about this controversial and serious movement that was going on and that it was needed. There is no sponsorship in this video. I mean, I wish I had sponsors for my vids, but I don't know. But we'll see in the future. But anyways, let's get on to it. So you may be wondering why I'm making this vid. I'm not here to get people's attention or nothing, and I'm not here to do shit posting or any content that would offend anyone. And this isn't a topic about the coronavirus or the pandemic itself, which I'll make a video where I talk about my thoughts and experience in the next several years, which will be another story time vid. That'll actually be, like a serious one. I'm only here to share my thoughts and belief regarding the events of this movement against the racial injustice of African Americans that took place last year, known as Black Lives Matter. Now, you guys all know this movement occurred while the pandemic was still hitting hard at the time. People with different types of races over the years have been brutalized and tortured a lot, which has been an unfortunate reality. And a majority of black people were being treated like morons, like they were enslaved. Especially during the days of slavery and the segregation laws. Ugh. I bet it's been difficult. And I honestly feel sorry for every black person to go through this type of shit. Not only that, but another reason behind all of this is police brutality. And that's been going on for a long ass time. Sure, not all police officers harm people, but most of them have been taking that action against innocent people who would get arrested for any crime that they would not commit or that they would never commit. And let me tell you this, I couldn't agree more on protests that went against police brutality, because it was needed after what was going on last year. And then this BLM situation came along that has both good qualities and bad qualities regarding it. However, this is not the first time that the world has ever had protests that fight for racial justice. We've been getting a ton of riots and protests across the globe pre-COVID. We fought for survival when the Great Depression occurred. We fought for justice when Martin Luther King Jr. made his I Had a Dream speech, and fought against segregation. And hell, even after racial discrimination became illegal, it is still excusably used to this day to make black people or any type of people with different races or origins look bad. I know, it's that fucking stupid. Yes, I feel bad for the people who went through difficult times like this, because I have and had a lot of classmates, teachers, and friends who are African Americans, and I never had a problem being around them at all. Not even a little bit, because, we're human. Okay, you know what? Let's just talk about how this started. So about a year ago, before all this chaos happened, there were a few incidents where a couple black people lost their lives from police brutality, like Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery. I don't know if I got the male African American's name right. I'm pretty sure I did. And people would join organizations to help the black people that need equal rights because they're humans. I mean, hell, they're humans too. And for some reason, the police never found one cop who killed a black woman that I just mentioned. There was also a marathon that took place called Run for Ahmaud Arbery, and it paid tributes to the black guy who lost his life for no good reason. And I thought it was nice of everyone who participated in the race to do so. Then, when Memorial Day arrived, my home state had just gotten out of quarantine, but we still had to be skeptical about resuming our lives. And all of a sudden, in Minneapolis, Minnesota, one of the cops took another black man's life, who went by the name George Floyd, by pressing his knee on the man's neck for 9 goddamn minutes while he was being arrested since Floyd was high. I remember the day after this type of tragedy, and one of my close friends from high school told me about it on Messenger, and he was telling me how cruel it was because it's considered brutality. Well, yeah, in fact, it actually was cruel. I couldn't agree more. Because, I mean, that shit was indeed cruel. And I was shocked when I watched the video and read the news about it. Also, how do I know George Floyd was high on cocaine or whatever, even though it wasn't his fault for that god-awful scene? Well, my dad realized from what he heard about was that he was high on something, and an officer who tragically killed him, Derek Chauvin, was realizing that something crazy was going on with that guy. But he took it too far when Chauvin and the 3 other officers were arresting him. And there's a video that my father found where he believed in this whole theory behind it is explained by one woman when she looked up Floyd's criminal records and what was going on with him before his death. But still, did that man deserve to die? No, he didn't. I couldn't agree more with everyone who felt poor for the man himself that George Floyd did not deserve to get killed by a police officer who wasn't well trained. And I mean, when he was saying that he couldn't breathe before he became unresponsive, it was really disturbing, and it felt very devastating to see him suffer. You know, this is something that's gonna give us the chills, but throughout the same week that the tragic incident occurred, the riots were breaking out here and there. And I don't know why people caused a lot of havoc like that shit, but it was most likely to get attention since their voices weren't heard enough. Plus, when we were watching The Joker one time, my dad stated that the people who were responsible for last year's riots were actually inspired by one scene where people get so chaotic and start destroying businesses. I mean, I'm sorry, I hate to say this, but that is not a good excuse for that disruptive behavior, my boy. I mean, trust me, a lot of businesses were being destroyed in downtown areas and literally everywhere else in the world. I mean, not just America, but it was in every other country as well. And what was even worse is that because of those shameless assholes destroying our home, the entire world had to be put under an overnight curfew. And it felt like that we were all in danger when the riots and violent protests were rocking the world throughout the cities. And also the neighborhoods. And as each night fell, we would have to be prepared by embracing ourselves in case of any riots destroy our homes throughout the movement of racial justice. You know what was weird? My mom told me one time to hide and avoid investigating in case of the riots would try to harm us in any way, which I understood her concern. But the thing is, she asked me okay a few times, which even though I'm not going to answer that repetitive question all the time. And that part was just annoying. I don't know why I'm going off topic here, but but it would have been fair if I would have tried to investigate at my own risk, And hell, I'd rather not hide like a coward and physically harm anyone who would try to attack me, like physically, whether I like it or not. And hell, I was actually carrying a pocket knife with me for a little bit one night. And I only did it in case of people would break in and try to kill me with their bare hands and without using a damn weapon of theirs. Well, speaking of all this, some of the businesses near my city that I know were wrecked quite a bit. No joke. You know what was also screwed up? The people who caused the riots were harmfully taking down one of the statues of one of the historical people and the Confederate flag because they referenced racism. I mean, even though they had something to do with racism, but my other close friend from high school was talking to me about the Confederate flag while the chaotic event was happening. And we were both devastated about it because the Confederate flag is what our college preparation and history teacher had for display as part of his decoration for his classroom. Not only that, but there was a transmission of phases in this BLM movement. So we shifted from the riots to both that and the violent protests occurring to the violent protests and peaceful protests occurring that went against police brutality and for fair chances of black lives that should be treated like actual humans, not enemies. And when the protests flooded across the globe, there were protests divided into two groups. There was a protest against police brutality, and there was a protest fighting for justice for the African American community. And people were chanting out the cries and the yells of what they could do to make the world a better place, and they were like, prosecute the police, no justice, no peace, or what do you want? Justice! Or say his or her name, the name of the black person who lost his or her life. And holy shit, my dude, it was everywhere. Regarding Black Lives Matter, it was an event that was actually needed, but it somehow became exceedingly, and I mean exceedingly controversial that my dad, my brother, and I despise about the event. A lot of people were making it political by saying that all lives matter, white lives matter, Asian lives matter, etc. As they were not the point. While it was occurring, some of that shit like that wasn't the point at the time. And there were also two groups in the same movement. Both the movement itself and the organization that has been around since 2013. Even though I don't participate in any organizations, BLM leads to racial justice, but on the other hand, the movement itself might have led to different morals that caused certain issues and consequences. And the peaceful protests are groups of innocent people that speak for justice with non-violence and celebrate in a way that's considered respectful to the society, which is good, which was one group of the movement that was needed the most. And the violent protests, on the other hand, are groups of people that don't take beliefs or any type of criticism too well, and use their excusable actions that would have caused a lot of harm. They would punch people or chase people for not believing in what they were going through. Like if you say all lives matter, they would eventually harm you for that. And they would try to attack you. Even if you wouldn't do anything to the people participating in the protests. Like, trust me, my dad drove by the downtown area in my city last summer at one point, and he and his girlfriend were surrounded by people who were participating in those violent protests. And they were staring at him, yelling at him. Some of them threw oranges at my dad's car. It was fucking terrible. And also, both my brother and my father were telling me not to say anything about any other lives that matter other than Black Lives Matter. Since there are people out there that don't understand what we mean by it. Even if you try to explain it, people, regardless of your race, will go ahead and attack the hell out of you. Plus, people use BLM as a term to start a fight, even though we're not trying to physically start a fight like a brawl. And believe it or not, those consequences were a thing, even before COVID. They still are today, but everything about BLM is not as crazy as it was when the world was distressed. And here's another thing. I know a lot of people say all lives matter to look for trouble, but when I say it, and as I explain the whole thing, here's the point. Because this is something that both my grandparents and one of my closest friends from high school believe in also. So please don't trigger me for this, my dudes. But when I say that all lives matter, regardless of the color of your skin, the country they were originated in, the beliefs they have, and the region that you're from, and also how old you are, I meant that everybody in the entire world, including black people, deserve justice. And hell, the African Americans deserve as much justice as we do with other types of race. This also means the equality rights that they deserve. And I couldn't agree more on this movement and what they were going through, you know? I mean, nothing is wrong with me, and that's the truth. You know, I'm not stupid. So yeah, I believe that both Black Lives Matter and All Lives Matter. And most of you guys out there don't even know me. And in case you didn't know, I have a lot of wisdom that I always enjoy sharing. Plus, I'm not going to go ahead and join the world of immaturity because there's a lot of disgusting people out there that do a lot of fucked up shit just to get attention. And I was talking to my therapist about it. And for those of you who protested against racial injustice, I would like to give a big thank you for going out there and getting your voice heard. I know a lot of people had done it, and I know some of my cousins did it. I know my friend Masant did it along with his family. A lot of celebrities participated in those protests. I mean, you know what? Well, you know what. And I want to thank everyone who participated in the BLM movement for going out there and getting their voices heard. Because I applaud you for that action you took. Even though I'm not democratic, but still. And let's just say it, because to be brutally fair, the BLM movement didn't affect me so much because I don't have any black friends or teachers who were treated poorly. I mean, I'm sure that some of them have, but I have a feeling that my friends that I know in my life were not racially discriminated against. And I know that others, even some celebrities, were treated like one. And regarding the movement, I've seen banners and photos of downtown areas campaigning for the movement and the change that the world needed to make. And that's the good part about it. But the bad part about it is not only that a bunch of assholes destroy one of the statues of one historic person and take down the Confederate flag, but other consequences came out of nowhere. And some people were not allowing black people to do what they wanted to do or to get fair chances while being treated like a normal human being. And some voice actors who are black people that voice black characters were being replaced with white people voicing the black characters because of what was going on at the time, which is stupid, and it made no sense. That part did not make any sense. And I don't know why they would do this to the voice actors who are African Americans, but I don't know what to tell you, man, but they shouldn't have done it. And I've seen videos and news articles regarding those types of situations that affected the entire world. But in the end, I've seen some videos of people discussing the movement on virtual platforms throughout the summer. And I remember seeing one after I got done watching the movie that came out the year I was born, called Dinosaur, you know, the Disney movie. I was watching on Disney Plus, but I don't know why when I talk about it. And it was emotionally thoughtful of the people who made those virtual speeches to do so. Although I hate to say this, but racism is never going extinct anytime soon. Yeah, I mean, that's true. I wish it did as well, but unfortunately, it's still with us. But hell, we can always find ways to avoid being racist. Again, let's be honest for once. I never expected any protests to get wild for anything that's going on. Sure, it was necessary for good reason, but if people never attacked each other, on the other hand, regarding their different beliefs, which showed how toxic that people can be, it would have been safer if people didn't gather in large groups and not wear a mask outside, socially distanced. But the thing is, everyone who participated in the BLM protests had to wear masks outdoors and not just indoors, because it was around the time when we had to be extra cautious. But let me tell you this, because I never went out to participate in protests. And I chose not to because, one, I don't do any protests, and two, I avoided them to be extra cautious since the pandemic was even worse at the time. And fast forward to this day, I hope that everyone could have justice for as long as they live, because we're human. And I believe that black people deserve more respect and to be treated like humans, not slaves. Plus, we all matter. You know, lives matter. And each of us, based on our race, need to be treated equally, based on what we dealt with for years. And what I do think is that African Americans deserve a better chance to be treated like human beings for the rest of their lives, once and for all, and being less tortured. And hell, as long as they live normal lives, like all of us should do, plus, our lives still matter to this very day, and I couldn't agree more on it, which is good. Sorry if I kind of act kind of angry and emotional. I just had to get all this shit on my chest based on what we went through, but you know. Alright, well, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you all understand the story and how I dealt with this shit and how this was needed, but you know. Okay, so again, thank you for watching. Be sure to hit the like button and subscribe, and I'll see you later. So this is me, Byron, signing off. Peace.